All right, well, Tim, thank you very much for joining us. How's it going?
Yeah, very well, very well. A little bit overworked. There's just too much. There's too much. Stop the ball rolling. I want to get off.
Too much football, yeah. Well, what have you thought of the tournament so far, just in general?
Early days. We don't know yet whether this tournament is going to have a future. I've enjoyed some of the games, but I'm worried, especially about the extreme heat that we're subjecting the players to. And a tournament is always remembered for its knockout stages, and I wonder how much gas people are going to have in a tank through the knockout stages. Because, and we saw, for example, Sunday, wonderful performance from Paris Saint-Germain. They're not going to be able to do that through the tournament. They will pay a price for what they did on Sunday, and so that's a fear that I have.
Yeah.
I'm internally torn on this. My 8-year-old self thinks this is fantastic. This is what I always dreamed about. My 60-year-old self thinks we're making too many demands on the players.
Yeah, I mean, I've not really thought too much about it. And then in the week building up to the tournament starting, I was like, oh, this is quite a big deal. We've got a K-League club involved. This is massive. And then, yeah, I was watching the PSG game the other day, and I thought, yeah, this is what, surely on paper, this is what fans want, isn't it? We prefer club football, and we've got a World Cup of club football. So on paper, you would think that this is exactly what we want. But yeah, it's I think obviously this first edition of it, there's little tweaks that might need to be made, and climates, like you just said, Tim. Obviously the talk about having it in the US again next time, or even Australia. So, I mean, maybe that might be a help if it's played in the southern hemisphere, and it's not it's not quite as hot as it is in California and Florida, for example. But yeah, it's been an interesting sort of first round or so. Some interesting results, including Fluminense's 0-0 draw against Dortmund. What did you make of that performance and that result, just for their campaign in this tournament?
It's a very, very good performance. Really good. I mean, they shaded the game. Although, and this is a problem that they've got, you can't quite see where too many goals are going to come from. On this side, they won the Libertadores South America Champions League in 23, punching really above their weight, because they haven't got the financial muscle of Flamengo or Palmeiras, the two Brazilian clubs who are in this to win it. So they haven't got that kind of muscle. And last year was a disaster for them. They very nearly went down, very nearly got relegated to Brazil's second division. And so that they come to this without real hopes of going all the way. Very happy about the money that they're going to be making from it, and happy for the opportunity. And it's already gone better than they could probably have expected, I think, shading Dortmund on paper, their most difficult opponent. And having said that, I think it would be a great mistake to make too many comparisons based on this, because the Brazilian league is shut down for a month for this, and it's mid-season, and Europe is there for the money. No one has planned for this, so I wouldn't read too much into the results. But what I liked about the performance was, because we had a Copa America in the States last year in similar conditions, in extreme heat. And there was one game, it was Peru against Canada in Kansas. And just before halftime, a linesman collapsed because of the heat. And he was from Guatemala. That tells you about what we're subjecting the players to. And one of the things I think we clearly saw in that Copa was a number of teams who were trying to play 4-2-3-1. They couldn't get by with just two in central midfield. They had to put a third in. And in general, I think, the South Americans, they've started very well. However, I thought the midfield two for Palmeiras were lucky to escape more cards. And even Flamengo, very good performance against Esperance, but more fouls than Esperance committed. Again, a lot in that area. And Fluminense put 3 in central midfield. And I think that was important in their performance, because one of the things this tournament is really all about, I think, is how able and willing are you to run backwards. We can all run forwards. Running backwards is pain. And Fluminense were disposed to run backwards. And that 3 men that they had there gave them a balance. Whether they pick the same team for the Koreans, I'm not sure. There's clearly a temptation there to put in the playmaker, the number 10, Paulo Hikiganso, who didn't get on the field against Dortmund, seen as a luxury, I think, in that game. But he's an important player for them otherwise. So that's one of the things that the coach has to balance. That can he get away with playing 2 in midfield plus Ganso, who has a wonderful left foot, sees a pass, but moves a little bit like a stately old lady at this stage in his career. So that's the big decision, I think, coming up around the next game.
Well, for those who haven't seen them play too often, what is the style of play, and who would you see as being a real key player for them in not just getting past Ulsan, obviously, but potentially going into the latter stages of this competition?
No doubt whatsoever about the key player. Little Colombian, John Arias, wonderful little player. He was awarded the superior player of the match. And how do they invent? It's not even English. How do they invent this? But from the Dortmund game, it's one of those mysteries, I think, that he's not in Europe already, and he would like to be. But it's that thing that Europe these days, it wants promises. It wants 18-year-olds. It doesn't want people in their mid-20s. He's a squat little figure. For the Colombian national team, he quite often plays as part of a disciplined midfield 3. For Fluminense, nominally he's a winger, usually on the right, but he'll flit around all over the place. And he's very, very good indeed. Low centre of gravity, turns extremely well. So he is without doubt the main player. The defensive unit, well, you've got the goalkeeper Fabio, 44 years of age, in sight of breaking Peter Shilton's record for a number of senior professional games. And you've got another veteran there, Thiago Silva, marshalling the defence. It's a side that like to play with wingers. Arias on the one side, a number of options on the other. They started off with Uruguayan Canobio. Brought on, when Spain, I know it was a good substitution, they brought on Serna, the Colombian, to play left. It's a good substitution because he's very, very strong. He's a strong runner. So when space opens up and the opposition get tired, he can run at you. So the problem really is centre forward. When the hero of the side that won the Libertadores in 23 was this Argentine called Cano, Herman Cano, who veteran now, but he's always scored goals and probably been underestimated because he makes it look so easy. 1 touch, 2 touches, goal. He's run into injury problems and age, and he's not fully fit. He came off the bench for the last few minutes. In his place, Everaldo is probably very happy that they're not playing this at home in Rio in the Maracanã, because the supporters are giving him a terrible, terrible time. He wasn't bad the other day. I think he enjoyed playing in New Jersey, but he's not a threat to the best defences, or shouldn't be a threat to the best defences. So it's 2 wingers and a central striker, with Arias the main danger man. Although the winger, it could be Canobio, could be Serna, could be Keno, a Brazilian. The winger from the other flank is also a danger. And the big decision there is, do they stick with 3 in midfield, or do they play 2 in midfield and the elegant playmaker Ganso?
Yeah. Well, obviously you mentioned therefore that they've got issues up front. With that in mind, and you said that a lot of the Brazilian teams are looking to try and go and win this competition, what are Fluminense's realistic expectations in that regard then?
I think they would be happy with quarterfinals. Going into it, you're thinking, can they get out of the group? The Dortmund game is a big morale boost for them. Although the Ulsan game is so different. Now the onus is on them. They're the team that might have to spend more time running backwards. Um, how how much faith do you have that Ulsan can give them a game?
I'm not sure, because the thing is, the manager that they've got at the moment, Kim Pang-gon, there's rumblings of players who aren't really that satisfied with him. The performances before the tournament weren't great. They won the league for the last 3 seasons, but he came in midway through last year, took over a team that wasn't really his. And now they've gone through this kind of generational shift and have got rid of some of their older statesmen. And the new players coming in, they're not used to playing even in the Champions League, even in the Asian Champions League. They're not used to playing in that. So I'm not really sure that they've got the nous and the experience. Well, they've got some experience, don't get me wrong, and some good players. But tactically, I'm not really sure. They tried a back three, and they've been playing out-and-out wingers as fullbacks in a 4 in the build-up to this, I think, as an experiment with Gustav Ludvigsson, a Swede who's an out-and-out wide forward, really, but he's been playing as a left-back. And he played him as a left wing-back with a back 3, and he seemed to be quite satisfied with how all that works, but there was just a loss of kind of predictable build-up play, and they looked all right going forward, but they never really looked like scoring in the first game against the Sundowns. So I don't really know. If this tournament had been played at the very end, right after the end of the domestic season last year, maybe they could have had a bit of a chance of realistically getting out of this group. But under this manager, in the form that they've been in, hit and miss in the league, really not sure that they've got what it takes. And the game against the Sundowns, that for me was the game that they had to win if they were to get out of the group. That was the one. But then you see Dortmund draw with Fluminense and think, well, then who really knows anything? I mean, what can we expect from any of these teams in these all in different situations? Like you said, with the Brazil League is sort of had a 5-week break, and they've had to stop in the middle. Dortmund at the end of a long European season. So we're all at different points in different seasons. And then who really knows?
Yeah, I would be a little bit concerned if they're playing wingers in defensive wide positions, because they're going to get tested. You know, their defensive, Fluminense will test their defensive ability.
Yeah. Well, just obviously you mentioned before about how the league in Brazil had sort of shut down for a month or so. What were Fluminense's performances like before that happened? Were they in a good rhythm? You know, were they doing okay?
Yeah, they're lying 6th, which I was thinking that might be a bit of a false position. There's a couple of games that they won right at the end, and you take those points away, and they plummet a little bit. So I was wondering whether that 6th was a little bit of a false position. I'm a bit less inclined to think that way after seeing them against Dortmund, because it was impressive. They were well balanced. And as I said, I think that they picked up a huge morale boost from shading Dortmund. But it's an entirely different game now. I mean, this tournament for the South Americans is rewards, but also risks. Because for them, it's a dream to be able to take on the European teams. It's not a dream to take on anyone else. It's a potential banana skin.
Yeah.
Because the Brazilians, they can be tradition snobs, and they tend to look down their noses at the teams from Africa, Asia, and North America. So, to fail to beat them, for example, in the Intercontinental played at the end of the year, where the South Americans have to get through a semi-final to get a crack at the Europeans. That semi-final is an absolute nightmare. It's a nightmare, because, all right, you get to the final, you lose to the Europeans, fair enough. But to fail to get to the final, losing to a side from another continent, that's an absolute nightmare. So if Ulsan can keep it tight for 20, 25 minutes, then the nerves pass to Fluminense. So that's important. So if you pardon the pretension, in the situation of the Ulsan coach, I would be giving priority to defensive solidity and defending well down the flanks to get in. If it's 0-0 at half an hour and you haven't crossed the halfway line, fine. You got the rest of the 90 to use that attacking pace and to cause them some problems. And you can do that. You can do that. And there are even a couple of errors, just little errors from Thiago against Dortmund. Got away with them. But there are a couple of little errors there. You can get behind that defensive line. It is possible, but you got to hang in there first, I think.
Yeah, well, Ulsan have got a Brazilian striker that they signed, Eric Farias, they've had a bit of a hit and miss sort of track record with strikers over the last couple of years who've come in to take over. But he seems to be doing all right, so he might fancy himself against a Brazilian team, or at least to sort of understand what they're all saying, and might feel like he's got a point to prove, perhaps.
He will love the opportunity to have that visibility because so many people in Brazil will be watching it.
Yeah.
So it's a chance for him to make a declaration of his own worth to the very people for whom it means most to him. So there'll be no lack of motivation from him.
Yeah. All right. Before I'll let you go, a score prediction. Hard to say, really, but what would you expect?
Always make your predictions after the event, but I'm going to go with 2-1 Fluminense.
2-1. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I could see that. All right, well, Tim, thank you so very much for your time and your insights. Really, really appreciate it. Enjoy the game and enjoy the rest of the tournament.
I will do. Cheers.
Cheers.